Coming up next, we go to Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama for a speech by President George Bush. He spoke there Saturday morning to the Air War and Air Command and Staff Colleges. The President's speech was the first of 4 policy addresses he plans to deliver on the New World Order. It focused on changes in Europe and the post-Cold War relationship between the superpowers. President Bush also used the opportunity to pledge his support to the Kurdish refugees in Iraq, stating, however, that American soldiers would not be sent to intervene. We go now to Maxwell Air Force Base and President George Bush.
Here at Air University, it's your business to read the lessons of the past with an eye on the far horizon. And that's why I wanted to speak to you today about the new world taking shape around us, about the prospects for a new world order now within our reach. For more than 4 decades, we've lived in a world divided, east from west. A world locked in a conflict of arms and ideas called the Cold War. 2 systems, 2 superpowers, separated by mistrust and unremitting hostility. For more than 4 decades, America's energies were focused on containing the threat to the free world from the forces of communism. That war is over. East Germany has vanished from the map as a separate entity. Today in Berlin, the wall that once divided a continent, divided a world in 2, has been pulverized, turned into souvenirs, and the sections that remain standing are but museum pieces. The Warsaw Pact passed into the pages of history last week. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. Its demise reported in a story on page A16 of the Washington Post. In the coming weeks, I'll be talking in some detail about the possibility of a new world order emerging after the Cold War. And in recent weeks, I've been focusing not only on the Gulf, but on free trade, on the North American Free Trade Agreement, the Uruguay round, trade negotiations, and the essentiality of obtaining from the United States Congress a renewal of fast-track authority to achieve our goals. But today, I want to discuss another aspect of that order, our relations with Europe and the Soviet Union. Twice this century, a dream born on the battlefields of Europe died after the shooting stopped. The dream of a world in which major powers work together to ensure peace, to settle their disputes through cooperation, not confrontation. Today, a transformed Europe stands closer than ever before to its free and democratic destiny. At long last, Europe is moving forward, moving toward a new world of hope. At the same time, we and our European allies have moved beyond containment to a policy of active engagement in a world no longer driven by Cold War tensions and animosities. You see, as the Cold War drew to an end, we saw the possibilities of a new order in which nations work together to promote peace and prosperity. I'm not talking here of a blueprint that will govern the conduct of nations or some supranatural structure or institution. The New World Order does not mean surrendering our national sovereignty or forfeiting our interests. It really describes a responsibility imposed by our successes. It refers to new ways of working with other nations to deter aggression and to achieve stability, to achieve prosperity, and above all, to achieve peace. It springs from hopes for a world based on a shared commitment among nations large and small to a set of principles that undergird our relations. Peaceful settlements of disputes solidarity against aggression, reduced and controlled arsenals, and just treatment of all peoples. This order, this ability to work together, got its first real test in the Gulf War. For the first time, a regional conflict, the aggression against Kuwait, did not serve as a proxy for superpower confrontation. For the first time, the United Nations Security Council, free from the clash of Cold War ideologies, functioned as its designers intended, a force for conflict resolution and collective security. In the Gulf, nations from Europe and North America, Asia and Africa, and the Arab world joined together to stop aggression and sent a signal to would-be tyrants everywhere in the world. By joining forces to defend one small nation, we showed that we can work together against aggressors in defense of principle. We also recognized that the Cold War's end didn't deliver us into an era of perpetual peace. As old threats recede, new threats emerge. The quest for the new world order is in part a challenge to keep the dangers of disorder at bay.
Nothing less than a new world order. This is the pledge of the world's most powerful leaders, representing 90% of the global economy. Thursday's G20 summit, they say, has changed the rules of the game.
Today, the largest countries of the world have agreed a global plan for recovery and reform. This involves the biggest interest rate cuts in history, the biggest fiscal stimulus we have ever seen, the biggest increase in resources in the history of our international institutions.
A total of $5 trillion for the global economy by the end of next year, including $1 trillion for the International Monetary Fund. Staggering figures that the 20 countries, along with international institutions, agreed upon to combat the crisis. The G20 has laid out other measures, too, to firm up a financial system many say enabled the worst excesses of the past. These include an end to tax havens, stronger regulation of companies and banks, and new rules to rein in corporate bonuses.
We will implement new rules on pay and bonuses at a global level that reflect actual performance, with no more rewards for failure.
The G20 leaders arrived in London divided, with France and Germany holding out for tougher controls on tax havens notably. But the results have won praise from all sides.
This is more than we could have hoped for. We are all aware that alone we can do nothing. We are all aware that we need to create new rules to build a new foundation of the system. This is what we have done.
The very institutions at the epicenter of the crisis have also made their approval known. Stock markets shot up in response to the deal, signaling, for now at any rate, a return of confidence.
The US presidential motorcade arrives at the United Nations, passing the ever-present groups of demonstrators assembled on the other side of the road. A sense of anticipation in the General Assembly chamber, and a warm reception for Barack Obama as he walks to the podium, his wife seated among the heads of state and dignitaries.
The time has come for the world to move in a new direction. We must embrace a new era of engagement based on mutual interest and mutual respect. And our work must begin now.
And the president outlined his vision of a new world order in which the US would participate fully, one rooted on 4 basic principles.
Non-proliferation and disarmament, the promotion of peace and security, the preservation of our planet, and a global economy that advances opportunity for all people.
You know, I don't like to think in terms of opportunities at this point. I would put it, at least in my area, more in terms of the biggest challenge that we faced over the next decade. I've dealt with international affairs in my career now for about 25 or 30 years. And we are in the midst of one of the historic global transformations that is going to eventually lead to a new world order. The shape of that we don't know at this point, but we know the processes that are underway. It's commonplace now to talk about the shift in global dynamism from the Europe, Atlantic region to Asia and the Pacific region. We've seen the tumult in the Arab world that started a couple of years ago. But we also know that the whole notion of power in the international system is changing. Before we talked mainly in terms of military power. We know economic power is much more important now. Soft power has become a very popular and almost voguish topic to talk about now. We've also seen that the fundamental building block of our international system, the sovereign state, you see it under stress from supranational organizations, sub-regional organizations, terrorist groups, transnational corporations, transnational non-governmental organizations, and so forth. We're seeing now that because of globalization, there is a tension between global processes and national regulation. We see that most vividly in financial flows that move around the globe almost instantaneously because of the internet, and yet it's still regulated largely by national regimes. And finally, we've seen globalization, the rise of new technologies, lead to an adjusting of the balance between state and society. I think most vividly right now in the Middle East. And so a massive global transformation. And all these forces, all these developments are going to play themselves out over the next decade. And the question is whether we can turn this challenge into an opportunity. Because there is an opportunity to take these various forces and build a new world order that will help create and sustain peace, prosperity, and justice well into the 21st century.
Australia is telling the rest of the world to hold its beer, literally. According to multiple news reports, the New South Wales Health Department in Australia is now limiting the amount of alcohol that residents can get delivered to their homes. Residents who are locked down are allowed just 6 beers, 6, or a bottle of wine per day. That's it. Residents of one apartment complex said the health department's searching all bags and packages that come into the building. Any alcohol above the limit, immediately confiscated. They probably drink it. This isn't about health. It's about the new world order they're trying to create. And that's not a conspiracy theory. It's what they're admitting out loud. Here's a health officer in New South Wales today.
We will be looking at what contact tracing looks like in the new world order. And yes, it will be pubs and clubs and other things if we have a positive case there.
Australia is looking more and more like the prison colony they once were. We hope the rest of the Western world is taking notice.